It's super important that you understand the planets and basically what their role is in astrology, because we're talking about the chart. When we're talking about the chart, it's so important to know what these roles are, these planets. And I'm going to start with like the obvious ones like the sun and the moon, and it lets you know how they play their role in your chart. Your sun, for one, is your ego, it's your personality in this life. So wherever it's placed, whether it be Pisces, Virgo, Aries, whatever, that is going to be your ego and how your personality archetype is. So based on whatever zodiacal sign it's in, that's going to be more or less what your personality type is. Now your moon is your emotions, mother, family, the home, the hearth. It's if your sun is what you want, your moon is what you need. And that is a very important role the moon plays, and it definitely has a big role in romance, love, and relationships, and it plays a very significant role in your synastry charts and composite charts and your relationships. I'd say it trumps the sun in a lot of ways, your moon sign. So it's very important to know your moon sign, and you can find that just based on what day usually and what year you were born and what location. So it's not necessarily knowing the time like the ascendant sign would be. Now, your Venus is your love, your values, your aesthetics, like what you find to be beautiful. Um, so it's very relevant, your Venus, to know what that is, because it's also how you want to be loved, how you need to be loved and fulfilled, in what way this love fulfills you. And then your Mars is going to be like basically your drive to acquire and your desires. So Mars plays a role in your sexuality. So in a synastry chart, it's very relevant. But it also shows your drive in life. Like if it's in Gemini, you might be a starter but have difficulty finishing with a lot of projects. Whereas like Aries, you're going to be incredibly driven. That Mars is at home in Aries, so you're going to be very driven. And then in Scorpio, you're very driven as well, because that's Mars' second home. It's your, I always tell people their first and second placements of the planets, because I believe in the old Hellenistic astrology as well. Before the planets such as Pluto, the outer planets, were discovered, very much the moon and the sun and Mercury, and there was very few planets, and some of them dictated over two. And for one thing, Mercury ruled over Gemini as well as Virgo. And Mercury is your mind, language, rationality, communication, all that. And it's so relevant. It rules over both both Virgo and Gemini. So it's a very important planet. And like I was saying with Mars' second rulership would be over Scorpio, because Scorpio is a planet where, it's more, I would say introvert Mars, and extrovert Mars would be Aries. So that's where you'd see that play out. But on that other end, the outer planets, such as Saturn, is going to be structure, time, and space, and that's the disciplinarian of the zodiac. Very much so. He is a disciplinarian. He genuinely will, show you in life by cutting out different things that will make life more difficult, or will make it to where you are homed into this area to where you have to focus and work on yourself. Saturn is a very important outer planet, and so would be Jupiter is your growth, faith, and confidence. And I hardly ever see a negative aspect that involves Jupiter other than indulgence would be a negative aspect I see, which is very rare. And Uranus is discovery, connection, genius. Uranus is that of Aquarius, as Aquarius is a secondary sign after, of course, Saturn. Saturn once ruled over Aquarius, which very few people know. But the Saturn's rulership is typically Capricorn, which is very traditional archetype for that zodiacal sign. So you can see how that fits in perfectly. But of course, you have Uranus as discovery, connection, and of course being on a cognitive level with the better half of the world, and of the you think of Aquarius as the 11th house, so you think of the collective, an understanding of the collective is super, super, super important. And that's why I rank Uranus as a very important planet, especially as we're in a world that's going through the age of Aquarius, where we are wanting to learn and be more collectively together. Uranus is incredibly important, and in your chart, whatever aspects Uranus, you want to understand that it can develop into some volcanic reactions in certain squares, because it's your independence, it's your genius, it's your discovery, it's your self-independence. So when it's pitted against certain planets like Mars, or somehow pitted in a square in which it's your survival for your independence is going to come out in an almost volcanic way, and it might cause for some ripples and waves against authority. And Uranus very much stands for out with the old, in with the new. So you can see how Saturn at one point is very conformist and very traditional, and then Aquarius, but then being one after another, Capricorn and Aquarius, could not be so. So it was right, the wrong was righted, and Saturn was given only to Capricorn, and we ruled Aquarius with Uranus. And then we moved on to Pisces, which is Neptune. And Neptune is a planet of very many things, including compassion, dreams, creativity, and disillusionment. So a lot of times we wear those rose-colored glasses, Pisces, or any other sign that has Neptune aspects. Neptune can cause you to have this disillusion and not very much of a clear frame of thought when it comes to certain things when you have a hard aspect with Neptune. So I am very weary, of when I see a chart that has heavy Neptune. I know that that person may need some coddling in some departments of their life that may, they might have not learned or been able to get a good, true idea of what love looks like, or what a relationship looks like, or whatever it's aspecting in a negative way, opposing or squaring. They may not know, how to handle certain things. So the outer planets can very much impact your life when they aspect the inner planets in a hard aspect. So it's very important to keep that in mind. And Pluto is, of course, like I said, Mars was initially the ruler of introverted Scorpio, but eventually Pluto is the ultimate ruler, which is all about choice, will, transformation, and of course death and rebirth, changes, power play. Pluto is very notoriously known for its power play and how it impacts people because of its power play. So if you have an inner planet that aspects Pluto in a hard aspect, you might see some, like I said, volcanic personality flare-ups in that realm as well. So Pluto is notoriously not very well looked at. It's frowned upon when it aspects in a negative way to Venus. You want, with love, you don't want power play with love in any regard, but and change in love, can be difficult, and it can be hard as well on somebody in a hard aspect. So we can see how, Pluto hard aspects to certain different, places in the chart. Now your south node is your patterns from your past lives. So wherever your south node is, I tend to look at your south node is where you've been, and your north node is your purpose and your goal in this life and where you're headed and where you're going. And interestingly enough, I'll sometimes see couples with their true node in each other's sun sign, which can be an interesting discovery, to find. Now your ascendant sign is your rising sign. It's your entrance into this life, and it's one of the most important placements, but it's not actually a planet that you'll find on your chart. It's a placement. If you look at the chart and you were to divide it in half, it looks like a horizon. So the ascendant sign is what was coming up on the horizon when you were born. It's a very important thing to know which zodiacal sign is your ascendant, because that would tell you your chart ruler, and hence tell you the other houses and the structure of your chart. You need to know what your IC would be. What house would your IC be? Depending upon your ascendant sign, you know what your IC is. Your DC, which is your descendant sign, like I said, it was a horizon, and what sign did it descend upon? I think it was Pisces as your ascendant. Virgo would be your descendant, of course, and your IC would be Gemini. And then you'd have to know, your midheaven is where you're headed and where you're wanting to go in this life. So it's very relevant for you to be aware of course, of where, let's see, of course, like Pisces, I've always said their secondary sign was Jupiter, or their secondary sign is Neptune, of course. Their first sign was Jupiter at one point. When we didn't know of Neptune, Jupiter once ruled Pisces, and it had grander dreams. And we all know Pisces is dreamy. And we also know Sagittarius has big dreams and big goals. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the midheaven for Pisces ascendants. So when you know your ascendant sign, you can better look at what your chart tells you a story a story plays out. So it's very important, and I believe that's what we're going to get into. I promised the moon signs next, and I leaped into planets because I felt that it was more relevant that you understood all the planets before we started into just one of them, which was the moon. So as I tell you these ascendant signs, keep in mind we're going to talk about moon signs next, but the houses are so relevant by knowing your ascendant sign. So finding that ascendant sign is one of the keys to reading a good natal chart and understanding it better. So I truly believe that your houses are what define you and what tell the story of who you are. So without knowing your ascendant sign, it's almost nearly impossible to know. And it's very important to know the exact time. So you want to get as close as possible, because depending upon the degree, your ascendant sign could fall a little bit more into one zodiacal sign or another. So it's very important to know that. So I feel like this video would give you guys a general wrap of what each of these planets, what kind of role they play in your house, in your life, and in your chart, so that you can better read a chart. So I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe down below and help me build my astrology family so I can teach you guys how to read a chart, because that's my true dream, is to teach you guys and show you guys knowledge, because knowledge of all things is something I feel should be freely given. So take, this knowledge I give to you, subscribe down below, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.